Yo, Dana brought it to my attention last month's episode. Like, look how big my coffee cup is when I'm drinking coffee. I'm like, damn, I didn't even pay that any attention. It's a big ass mug. That is not a cup of coffee. That is a pot of coffee in her hand drinking coffee. Dana, you are a fool for bringing that to my attention. Damn. And last month we was also talking about her dog, Woody. Now this fool sleeps with his teeth hanging out his mouth. Look like a little hairy Dracula. Got some pretty ass teeth though. Hope you enjoy this new episode. Peace. (1981), Ronald Reagan takes oath as 40th president. Then came the closing of shelters and the homeless no longer had a residence. 1982, John W. Hinckley Jr. found now guilty of insanity in shooting of President Reagan. At $4.84 a pound, up 20 cents a year ago, now is the price of bacon. 1983, hands down, Michael Jackson and the Police dominate the Billboard charts. But it's because of Michael Jackson that we now have pop charts. 1984, movie tickets $2.50 and a gallon of gas $1.10. Man, I would love to see those days again. 1985, the U.S. postal stamp was 22 cents. We spend more time watching TV than social time spent. 1986, Space Shuttle Challenger explodes after launch at Cape Canaveral, Florida, killing all 7 aboard. The nation all came together and prayed globally to the Lord. 1987, NBA Championship, LA Lakers defeat Boston 4-2. Dreamgirls opens at Ambassador Theater, New York City on the 28th of June. 1988, a new drug, crack, appeared, a derivative of cocaine. And then Black on Black Crime was the #1 campaign. 1989, Brother Hypnotic graduated from high school. What I learned in English is what I use now as my #1 tool to rule. Hey, we're back. Episode 2. Me and my girl Dana D is back in the house.
Yes, we are. Episode 2. I hope you guys enjoyed episode 1. We're going to share a lot with you again today. And of course, we would love for you to give us your comments and, get in contact with us if there's questions you have or other things that you want us to cover. I'm going to go ahead and let TJ take it from here.
This episode is basically about high school and what's happened now since high school for us in modern day society with gun violence. Don't get me wrong, man. High school was a marvelous time for me and Dana. We had great success in academics,
Cheerleading, dance, art, theater.
you name it.
We were involved with pretty much everything in high school with sports and working out. And I would say probably our teachers were the most influential in regards to just our positive mindset.
Absolutely.
Even if violence broke out in high school, there was still a matter of order that took place if something were to happen because, there was still racism and different nationalities not getting along with one another because of their beliefs. And there was still gang violence with, I think, most of the culture with Hispanic and African American. There was that issue in our schools. We got to look at everything because here we are in 2022 and we were back in school in 1989 and here we are going through the same thing. So in reality, nothing's changed.
Violence predicated on racism hasn't changed. It's been the same since the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Here we are in 22. It's gotten worse because the access to guns is easier. The access to fame, that 15 minutes of fame, anybody can have it now.
Yeah.
You can go on a gaming channel, a YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, and you're an instant success in a negative way overnight. So it's a lot more pressure and a lot more serious than it was back in the 80s when we were kids.
Yes, there's a lot of, I just think the self-identity crisis, we talked about that.
Right.
And I actually talked to another friend of mine with, their child in high school right now that there's a huge issue with that and them threatening one another to show things on TikTok or separate pages that are made. We as individuals and adults have to be the mentors to some of the young children and teenagers and even young adults that are struggling through the pandemic, through now going out and being able to reconnect with friends. And I think most people in Sacramento are a little hesitant on doing things because of the gun violence that took place, which was, I think, April 23rd.
Right.
We got to share these things and be transparent and get everything out there that we need to get out there that's the truth, instead of the media basically giving us bits and pieces of it. They're not giving us numbers. They're not giving us statistics. And as TJ tells some of his story, I'll get into some of the statistics a little bit later, but, it's real and it's time for change and it's time for each individual person to do their part.
Yeah, to piggyback off what she said, growing up in Compton, my brothers were gangbangers. I was used to having guns in the house, hidden under my mattress and stuff like that because my brothers had to hide them from our parents. So, but not until high school, my freshman year, I was really affected by gun violence. Now, the year previous, I had moved up here to Sacramento, started going to Rudder Junior High School, and I lived in the Deer Creek area. And in that area, I met a couple of friends that was in the neighborhood. One was Courtney Dillon. We were like a couple of blocks away. We became friends over the summer. He would spend the night at my house. I would spend the night at his house. My parents knew his parents, so we got along great. And one particular day at lunch at Rudder Junior High School, we did a thing called, we was bagging, capping, throwing down names on each other, your mama jokes. Him and this white guy was going at it, and it got really, really racial, and it got really, really serious. And Courtney was very flamboyant, and he was probably gay back then. I didn't really realize it at the time. But Courtney was like today's Medea. He was move his head. Oh, you so ugly. Oh, look at your shoes. I mean, he was, when he got going, Courtney was.
He was a mess.
He was.
He was a mess.
And this white guy, I guess, said something derogatory in a racism way. And Courtney, there we go with the dogs again. They're part of the show.
They're part of the show. Sorry, guys. It's morning and squirrel time.
And Courtney just went into a rage. His eyes got really big. and he was saying, "Yo, mama this, yo, daddy this. You're just white trash. You're a racist. You're mad because you ain't me. I'm from Africa." And that white dude just sat there and stared at him, and it was so uncomfortable. The principal came and broke everything up because it was a big crowd of people watching this, and it got out of hand. And spring break, I remember I went back to LA for a while to go visit, and I told my mom I do not want to go back to Sacramento because my mom hasn't officially moved down yet. So I managed to coerce her to make me stay in LA. She put me in a Jehovah's Witness school. I was like, damn. But
She's like, you can stay in LA, but this is what's gonna
yeah,
happen.
praise Jah, young man. So I'm going to a Jehovah's Witness school, but you know, it was better than going to Rudder. And I think Courtney was a little hurt because we was really close, but he's like, you gotta do what you gotta do. And so the following summer, it was official. My mom, everybody moved to Sacramento, and that summer, I moved to a different neighborhood, so I didn't see Courtney Dillon. But when I started high school, the next semester, me and Courtney Dillon ended up being locker partners because when you're a freshman, you got to share lockers. You don't get your own locker.
I remember that.
So it was cool. It was like we was reunited. And he goes, "Yeah, man, things is cool, but no, guess who my best friend is? That one guy, I forgot his name, that one white kid." I'm like,
I don't remember his name.
yeah,
but
something like
he
Brandon
was
or.
a little off.
And he was really quiet.
Yeah.
I go, "Wait a minute, that dude that you destroyed at lunch talking about him, you guys are best friends?" And I questioned him about it. He goes, "Yeah, man, he's cool." I'm like, "Well, Courtney, I don't want to meet him. I don't want to get down like that with him. That's your buddy now? Cool." So even though me and Courtney were locker partners, we wasn't as close as we were. We talked to each other in passing, and we had different lunches, so we couldn't kick it the way we used to. And your freshman year is an odd year because you're finding out who you are. And
You're still developing into
Yeah.
who you are your freshman year. Like, you know, there's some, I would say, teenagers that are a young adult, and then there's sometimes some that are still 12-year-old mentality, even though you're a freshman in high school.
right. Because when you're a freshman, you're still basically an eighth grader, just in a bigger body, trying to figure it out. Now you're surrounded by upperclassmen, and you're trying to be something that you're not to try to fit in. It's an odd moment in your life. And at this point in time, me and Courtney was distant, but we was getting closer and closer throughout time. And it was a weird day. Like it was an upperclassman who was talking shit about my cousin Steve, that he beat him up back in junior high school. And Steve said, "That ain't true, TJ. I whooped his ass back then." So I had lunch, and I walk up to this table in what was it called, the MP room?
The MP room, it was our big,
Multi-purpose,
huge,
yeah.
multi-purpose room.
No, it
And
wasn't a cafeteria.
no, wasn't a cafeteria. I think there was lunch and stuff served in there, but
Right.
sometimes there were fights that broke out in the lunchroom, and then they would throw
Yeah.
the tables, and that happened a couple times when we were in high school. There were
Oh,
some
yeah.
major fights in that room.
I was one of them because here I am, a freshman, trying to submit my way of life as a freshman, and me and my cousin are really close, but he's an upperclassman. So he told me that Trayvon, I whooped his ass back at Rudder years ago, and Trayvon was talking shit that he did it to my cousin. So me and Trayvon had the same lunch, and he's at the table with upperclassmen all hanging out talking. Here I am, a lonely little freshman. I walk over to his table, and I stood up on top of this partridge seat and looking down at him and pointing. I go, "Man, you talking shit about my cousin that you whipped his ass, and really he whipped your ass." So it spread like wildfire. And by next period, Steve's like, "Dude, what did you do at lunch?" I said, "You can go talk to him, but what did you do?" I said, "Well, I caused a scene and almost got into a fight myself." And Steve started laughing. So by the end of the day, there was going to be another fight,
Right.
chapter 2, between Steve and Trayvon after school. But I couldn't watch it because at the time I was getting bussed because I lived out of the district, out of the territory, so I couldn't stay for the fight. But Courtney said, "Hey, man, I live in the same neighborhood as your cousin. I'm going to stay and watch the fight. I'll call you afterward, let you know who won." Because we didn't have cell phones and stuff back then,
No,
or
we
pages.
didn't have cell phones. We couldn't record things.
We had to go home and,
and dial a phone. So there wasn't even push button phones when we were in high
no,
school.
that shit was fancy. Doo, 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 doo.
It
That
made
glow.
noise,
Yeah.
or it went the
Yeah.
if you were at your grandma's house.
So high school, this was like the big thing, fighting after class, and I started this whole ruckus, and I became like popular overnight. A freshman, sitting there starting crap with a 10th grader and all his buddies. And that same day, I skipped my next lunch, and me and Courtney hung out. And me and Courtney ain't kicked it like this in almost a year. So we skipped lunch, we hung out, we was laughing, ignoring everything. He said, hey man, there's a girl in my class, because Courtney was uber smart. He had upperclassmen classes. He said, there's a girl who's in the 10th grade that has a crush on you, and she knows that.
TJ had a lot of girls that had crushes on him in high
Well,
school.
you know, what can I say? And he
Had to
said,
go there,
and
sorry.
she said, I'm gonna give you a letter to give to your friend. I know you guys are locker partner. I'm like, who is it? He goes, man, I can't tell you. She says, you have to read the letter. I'm like, man, come on, man, tell me. He wouldn't tell me. And the last period of the day, he gave me the letter from her. He goes, man, read this on the bus on the way home. Then tomorrow you can decide if you like her or not, right? I'm like, all right, man, whatever.
Yeah, in class, everybody's shared notes, and you folded them a certain special way.
Man, it's like Rubik's Cube trying to open that bad boy.
Yeah, they made them in little shapes of things. Like sometimes they were birds. Everybody folded letters and stuff, where they folded it like a letter and you had to open it up. And when there were fights and stuff going on, that's how the notes got passed around to let people know, oh, so and so's getting in a fight at 3 o'clock or whatever. It just like was prearranged fighting. It was a little bit insane. But
3:20, meeting in the back by the basketball courts. Well, this took place in the handball courts. And I'm on a bus, I'm reading the letter. I'm like, who is Rhonda Velmonte? I'm like, I don't know who she was, because she was an upperclassman and she worked in the office. Well, anyway, I'm going home, and Steve, my cousin, whooped Trayvon's ass again. It was easy. He was taking him and throwing him around because my cousin was in wrestling. So I was waiting for Courtney's phone call when I got home. I'm waiting, I'm pacing back and forth, because this was a big moment for me. I started this whole thing, right? And I got a phone call from my cousin Steve. He goes, hey man, he didn't sound excited or anything. I go, what's going on? I said, man, did you win? He goes, yeah, dude, I won the fight, but man, Courtney's dead. And it went over my head. I go, Courtney, whatever, man. Did you win the fight, man? Because my reputation's on the line. I know you the one that did the fighting, but I'm the one that started everything, and people are looking up to me. He goes, TJ, dude, yeah, I won the fight, but Courtney's dead. He got shot. I go, all right, man, whatever. And again, it went over my head, and I had to go to the Kingdom Hall that night with my parents. As I'm in the shower, I broke down because it finally hit me. Then my parents said, come here, watch the 5 o'clock news. And I seen it. I remember what Courtney wore that day at school. He always wore khakis and tennis shoes with white socks. And they covered up his head because the guy that shot him right between the eyes. And the guy that shot him was that guy that he befriended, but a year ago destroyed talking about him. I thought it was weird, how I said, how they became friends. They was walking home from school. He said, look what I got, man. I brought this to school. It's my dad's gun. Everybody's like, dude, what are you doing with a gun? And he was like pointed at everybody, goofing around. It was loaded. He pointed at Courtney and shot him point blank in the head.
And so some of it was reported as being accidental, but
whatever.
The fact that they had other incidences happening prior to that, there's also premeditated crime that happens with people that are mentally ill. So again, you know, just because a person's young doesn't mean that they may not have, oh my goodness, like my dog has a mentally ill issue right now with the cats next door. So we'll talk about behavior. You know, yeah, gotta come off the limb.
In a future episode, yeah.
Future episode, we'll talk about dog behavior maybe. Anyways, you know, some people have mental disorders, and when we grew up in high school, there was ADHD, you know, attention deficit disorder,
And that was
OCD.
about it, yeah.
And attention deficit order was common when we were in school, but there's a lot more other things that are, you know, not talked about. There's Asperger's disease, there's
a lot more.
And then the bad thing is some of these young kids have these things and parents are ignoring it, so they're self-medicating, and then you get into these premeditated things. And now on internet, they're getting into these stalking things where they're getting on the internet also, learning how to make a gun, learning the cultures of racism in regards to white supremacy and devil worshiping and all of these horrible, horrific things that a lot of people don't want to talk about, but in reality, we have to discuss these things because it can happen to anybody. I mean, coworkers at an employee, you know, when you're working for an employer, sometimes lose it, and you have where the coworker violence is coming back. It's absolutely crazy that we're having to have these discussions. And since we're talking about gun violence,
Woody, stop.
yeah, that's enough. Sorry. Since we're talking about gun violence, I just happened, our first episode was May 4th, and so I decided, I'm going to do some statistics. And there's been 198 shootings since May 4th. That technically is 10 per week, which is all over the world. It's not just Sacramento, California. How is that okay? How are we accepting those type of statistics? And the news talks about, oh, there's been another shooting in LA. Oh, there's been another shooting in Sacramento. There's been another shooting in Alabama.
Yeah.
There's the shooting in Buffalo, which I can't even really talk about that one because that one is just saddening.
Come here. Stop.
Come here, you guys. That's enough. Go get your toy.
Come here, Hardy. Trying to walk all slow. Yeah, you're busted, buddy.
Yeah, they're bad dogs today. It's a bad Sunday. Bad dog Sunday day.
They've been doing this all morning, ever since I got here.
So we apologize. Now we're back on track.
Don't you start.
Nene.
Walking with his head down like this, like, yeah.
Like I'm really gonna act like I'm not gonna bark, but I'm gonna bark in like 5 seconds.
Gotta love him.
Gotta love these dogs. They just are addicted to the cats next door. And so they think that barking is gonna help Vicky get the cats in and all that good stuff. So, hi bud.
But since we was in the 80s, up until now, this has been going on. And when it's racially motivated, it's even scarier, And there are kids who have mental issues. Like back then, we didn't know what it was. We thought it was just straight racism. We didn't know what was going on. But befriend somebody for a whole year and premeditated, because the following day was a Friday, and I had to go and clean out the locker because his parents were at the school. I was in first period, and the funny thing about it, the girl that he was talking about, Rhonda Belmonte, worked in the office. And when she came and got me out of class, she goes, "Hi, TJ, I'm Rhonda." I go, "Rhonda, are you the one?" She goes, "I'm the one that wrote you the letter." So she had a hall pass to get me out of class.
His first girlfriend freshman year wrote him a letter.
Yeah, we became girlfriend and boyfriend. It was, yeah, buddy. Yeah, she was Filipina. It was cool. But she got me out of class. It was weird because here we are about to start a relationship, and she's crying in my shoulder because her and Courtney was cool in class. So she goes, "Do you need help?" I go, "Yeah, let me get my cousin out of class. I can't do this by myself." I went and got my cousin out of class, what she did, and he helped me clean out my locker, and we grabbed all of Courtney's belongings and took them to the office, and his parents were there. And Miss Santangelo, the principal, the vice principal was all there. They said, "Son, tell us what you know." So I told him the whole story from the year previous about what happened at Rudder Junior High School, and the parents said, "Thank you," because that was their only son, their only child. And they knew something was weird because they said, "You and Courtney was close." But when Courtney brought home that kid, he never was warm to us. We just didn't see the dynamic of them being friends. And they felt the same way that I did, that this was premeditated a year in advance. And it was a hard thing to tell his parents what I knew and to bring his sweater, his books. And we used to make our own book covers back then. He was a good, he can doodle and draw.
A lot of people drew really well. Like some artists that we had, our yearbooks even had some of their artistry in our yearbooks, I remember through the years.
Yeah.
But they did, that we made the paper bag covers with our books.
Right.
Because our books had to be covered so that they didn't get ruined, because sometimes you had to reuse books. Nowadays, I think they buy books at school.
Yeah.
Even high school and college.
That's right.
But all the paperback stuff, and then you shared your lockers with, a couple people sometimes. And I remember, I think our PE lockers were shared too.
That's right.
Which was kind of gross because some
Musty
people
ass clothes.
did not clean their clothes. Please wash your gym clothes. That's
T-shirts smell
kind of
like
important.
balls.
Nastiness. Yeah.
Ugh.
It was not okay. Yeah, the things that you go through as growing up, hygiene is important. That's the other thing too. Like TJ mentioned in our first podcast, don't be the person that instigates more hate on an individual. Like if someone has an issue with an odor or a hygiene or those type of things, and when you're sharing a locker or growing up with someone, it's like, you don't know where they're coming from. You don't know, what if their parents can't afford to pay their water bill and they're not able to shower, or
Yeah.
the only shower they get is going into the school to take a shower, and that's the way they bathe
Mm-hmm.
because of PE class. So there's other things that add up to things that everybody thinks, oh, that's just gross. They just haven't been taught right. It's not that they haven't been taught right. You have to understand the circumstances of where people are coming from, what their neighborhood statistics are in regards to, is it low income, medium class, high class. Everybody comes from a different social background at the end of the day.
Very
And so
true.
it's like, that's how our high school was. And the fact that our principals had everybody get along, yeah, we still had racism. Yes, we still had different cultures not wanting to get along with one another. But I would literally say, probably by the year that we graduated, a lot of the gang violence, a lot of the fighting and all that stuff had stopped because more of the kids were involved in sports. They were involved in arts. They had teachers, dance,
Yeah.
theater. There was everybody that was involved with stuff. And they also even let, some of the high school people, most of the time the seniors run the rallies, but like they did their own music and got to be able to be like DJs in school. And,
Right.
so music and band, all those things were a part of high school growing up, which I think prevented some of the violence. And now as we go into some of our schools today, parents are having to pay for those extracurricular activities. And some people don't have it at the end of the day.
Nope.
And so their kids are going without, they're getting into trouble, hanging out with the wrong people, getting into gangs. Gangs usually take people that feel less than and think, you're going to be a part of this gang, regardless of it being Crips or Bloods or all of the other gangs that are out there. Because
Right.
just like in the prisons, you're either a part of something or you're not a part of nothing at all in the prisons. And that goes on too. Everybody thinks, oh, they're in prison, everything's good. No, it's not.
No. And the year we graduated in '89, the Bloods and Crips had called it truce by that time. But the Asian gangs were getting really popular because the year we graduated was the last year of open campus.
Yep.
Look, we can get in our cars and leave, go off campus, go get McDonald's at lunch. We had it good. But the following year, all that came to an end, and the Asian gangs really got popular in Sacramento, and the dynamic was totally different.
Yeah, the Asian gangs, and it was a specific dynamic and territory that it was very territorial too.
Very.
And as we graduated in '89, Stockton Boulevard, Mack Road, Florin Road, some of that violence got into the gang violence with the multicultural gangs that's when more of the violence started with the guns.
Got rough.
It got really rough and scary at the same time. I mean,
Yeah.
we used to have Florin Mall that we used to be able to go shopping there all the time, which probably eventually we'll probably do some scenes in different areas where we grew up that you guys will see us filming to show like where we came from and where it is now.
Right.
It's interesting too for you to rewind and actually figure out where you came from and statistically look, has it changed? Has it grown? Has it gotten worse? Some areas have gotten worse. Some areas have gotten better. But at the end of the day, we still are having the same cultural racism issues at the end of the day. And we're still having hatred in school with students. The premeditated stuff with the students, most of these shootings that are taking place are people that are mentally ill. The recent Buffalo one,
Yeah.
they're doing all the research, and a lot of this was premeditated. The vulgarity that was on his gun. I don't like using that word. You probably won't hear me say that word. I'm not going to say it. You can figure it out if you've watched the media. TJ knows that. I know that in the Black culture that word was used frequently to be something kind of common amongst other people. However, I was taught it was very disrespectful, and I was not allowed to say it. And so I still don't say it. I still think it's rude and disrespectful. Just like in my culture, I'm Italian. If someone called me a wop, because that's not polite, they said that Italian people were lazy. They didn't work hard. There's a lot of other things that we can go on and on and on about what other cultures and what their names are called. But, at the end of the day, it's not necessary. I've said before, you're a human being. And so the fact that we have human beings that are capable of going online and buying a gun, I can't remember how old the kid was in Buffalo, but he was 18 years
18 years old.
And anybody can go online and buy a gun. You can buy pieces of gun to make a gun. And so, everybody talking about, oh, it's them selling guns, it's this and whatever. You can buy the pieces to make a gun. So some of the gang violence, that's what they're doing too. They make their own guns, and they're not going to the store and buying them, because most of their stuff on the street is all illegal, you know?
Yeah, and he scoped out that store. He was even letting people who were not of African descent leave. Oh, had the gun pointed at him. Oh, I'm sorry. You can leave. That's premeditated, man.
Yeah.
That's sick.
It's sick. And so at the end of the day, it could have been any one of us at a grocery store. It could have been one of our family members at a grocery store. It could have been the person in the parking lot. It could have been the security person trying to save someone. There's a new report now coming out with, I don't know if any of you follow Sean King, but Lee Merritt, Sean King, Ben Crump, they're doing good work at the end of the day. And I know some people beg to differ with that, but Sean King has just found additional information in regards to, I think, 5 to 7 correctional officers that have thought it's okay to talk about the white supremacy, and there's some very disrespectful things that have gone on. Those 7, it's either 5 or 7 correctional officers have been put on paid leave at this time, and it's being investigated. So just because someone is in corrections or in the police department or judicial, I'm gonna be real transparent here, does not mean because they have set an oath to the state that they have decided to be of service of and to protect and serve, does not mean that they are legal at all times. There's a lot of coercion, and there's a lot of judicial dysfunction that is going on, and people being paid under the table, even correctional officers assisting with gang violence and things it's cat time. Like, I don't even know what time it is, but it's cat time on Sundays in my backyard. So, but the correctional facilities, they have their own gang thing going on at the end of the day, and the correctional officers are in on it. And so, everybody's thinking, oh, it's just always these unhealthy people that have mental issues. Oh no, you have other people that have issues too that are enhancing what's going on in our crazy world as well, even
Absolutely.
behind bars at the end of the day. So it's all coincided with one another.
Yeah, it's just, if you're a parent, be mindful of what your kids are into and who their friends are. When I was growing up, my parents knew who my friends were, and they knew their parents. I could not have a sleepover if our parents didn't meet, They knew who I talked to on the phone, because my mom
Yes.
will pick up the phone. I'm in there talking to one of my girlfriends. She pick up the phone. Who are you talking to? Who is this?
My parents were the same way. We didn't have two-way conversation until, I don't know how old we were, but you couldn't do call waiting, or if anybody remembers what that is. Back in the day, my mom and my dad, if they were expecting phone calls, they'll, who are you talking to? Get off the phone. I have a business call coming in.
Exactly.
But our parents were nosy, if you ask me, but I'm glad they were nosy at the end of the day.
Private detectives.
They were undercover.
Yeah.
Our parents were undercover. And then all the parents too at Valley kind of were undercover too, because a lot of the times you didn't know that all the parents were talking to one another.
Had no clue.
So you young ones out there, don't think you can put stuff past your parents, because most of the time we know, but in reality too, you don't always know what's going on with your kids.
Right.
And one thing that I know some parents feel absolutely it's not okay, it's disrespectful to have authority over your kid's phone. You need to see what your kids are doing at all times, because the predators that are out there, I think I shared statistics a long time ago, not on our first podcast, but any child at the age of 12 that is signed up for TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you name it, within 30 seconds, over 5,000 predators have already accessed your kid's page with you not even knowing it.
Yeah.
And 5,000 predators on one child, which again brings us to another 12-year-old that was recently just kidnapped in one of the NBA games. I am someone who, my nieces and nephews and other people think that I'm a little bit paranoid, but I do not let them go to the restrooms by themselves for that exact reason. This 12-year-old, I believe one was a female and one was a male. The young child was trafficked and I think gone within 30 minutes. probably raped 15 to 20 times within the first hour, 45 minutes of being kidnapped. You know, again, you think that your kid's okay to go to the bathroom at an NBA game.
Exactly.
NBA and NFL is one of the highest trafficked areas in regards to sex trafficking. So that's another wake-up call. Again, violence, guns, drugs. They use these young kids because they are easily manipulated at that age, and they coerce you to do all this stuff. Just like TJ talking about the young kid that, you know, killed Corey in high school. There were other issues going on with this kid prior to. And the funny thing is like TJ didn't like hanging out with Corey, or he liked hanging out with Corey, but not the kid that had the mental issues.
I had a feeling about him.
He had a feeling about him. So it's like when you're hanging out with friends and you think something's just not right with someone, it's like, talk to your parents about that. Because sometimes, even at work, if you have an employee that's disgruntled and not happy at work, or constantly something going on, or they're coming in late, or sometimes people coming in late, they got a sick parent at home, or someone that might have cancer, a parent that might have a mental issue at home. Even another, you know, or a coworker can have depression or a bad relationship going on. There are numerous lists that we can continue to go on and on and on and on. But when you start realizing a person went from one behavior to a drastic behavior of being, you know, disrespectful, being late, being tardy, even in classrooms, kids start not showing up to school because they're either leaving school to go do drugs with other people,
Follow the pattern.
or follow the pattern, or they're hanging out with people that are manipulating them to go, oh look, we're gonna go get these guns and we're gonna go do this. And all of these things are like their own gangs at the end of the day, where some of these kids are easily coerced from even junior high school to high school, and then even college. You know, college is not excluded.
Nope.
There's hazing in college. So to me, hazing to me is another gang, if you ask me. You know, they keep saying that they're trying to get a handle on that, but that still takes place for people to be in a sorority.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Making a person drink to the point of where they're ill, or they're so dehydrated they have to go to the hospital. Just because you're drinking alcohol does not mean you're exempt from dying from it. That's something that alcohol poisoning is very serious, and a lot of hazing that goes on with that. I mean, even gang initiation, they do stuff like that where they make you take drugs, drink to the point where you can't function. These are all kinds of things that is not normal behavior. That is not normal mental issues. You know, some people drink or use drugs because they do have mental issues, but to come to the point where you're incoherent, that you can't function, or you're drugged to be used for sex or something of that sort, or abused in a sexual connotation way, those are all things that are not okay. And, you know, these topics are hard for us to talk about, but, you know, I was raped at the age of 19. I went out with a girlfriend and someone drugged me and her. I won't go into detail. Everybody knows what happens when that you know, when an individual gets raped or if they're sexually harmed. At the end of the day, was my intention to go out and get drugged? Absolutely not. Nobody's intentions are ever to go out and get drugged and have that type of thing happen. But you can see where someone who might be younger, it could be someone that's even older at a club. You could go to the bathroom and not come back out of the bathroom because someone put something over your mouth that makes you stop breathing, become incoherent. So there's just so many things out there that, you know, we're not trying to be negative Nancy and Debbie Downer and all these things, but these are things that we need to educate people on, because our society and our world, we aren't who we used to be anymore.
And we're not talking to be talking. We're talking from experience.
Own experience and daily experience of things that, you know, I'm seeing, and people calling me and asking more questions. I mean, I am in contact with a trauma therapist constantly to help other people with advice of other things that are going on in their kids' lives, even adult lives. You know, we got to remember we're going through this pandemic too. We have not had a normal life almost 3 years, and we're going on to the third year, you know, and I think everybody was kind of like, oh, you know, things haven't been that bad because everything was closed down. But then when I read that we're having maybe 10 shootings per week, not in our city, but all over the place, that's unacceptable. And we got to do something about it. You know, I was kind of angry when I read some of the statistics, because I said, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and look up, since May 4th, since we did our first podcast, how many shootings has there been since then? And here we are, you know, and then having to share, you know, something that was traumatizing to TJ in high school. Those things are all triggered again when other violence continues to happen. And that's the part that we have to have a serious conversation about, because the healing process is, it doesn't happen overnight. I'm 51 years old, and these recent shootings have triggered other things in my life that had happened for me to have to revisit some of those things, and it's very emotional, it's very painful. At the end of the day, you know, we can't keep ignoring this. If you think it's okay that we have 198 shootings since May 4th and 10 per week,
Nah, bro.
that could be one of you next time. A friend,
Family member.
just driving down the freeway. I mean, there's road rage at the end of the day too. Crazy road rage since COVID.
Yeah.
Crazy dogs.
This time, this is Hardy getting on film.
No, this is
No,
Woody.
this is Woody. Last time it was Hardy. My bad. He's looking at me like, Mom, get my name right.
Oh boy, these dogs are a lot. They behave a little, and then they have to be a part of the show always. They have their little starburst of energy, and you know, at the end of the day, we just want to continue to educate you. You know, check out some of the people's names that I've mentioned and start doing your own research. You know, if it's not your thing, it's okay, but I don't want you to end up being a victim of one of these crimes because you just want to ignore it.
Exactly.
We can't ignore any more of this at this point. You know, innocent grandmas, cousins, daughters, caretaker that was injured in the Buffalo shooting. I mean, she was someone that moved there to take care of, I believe, her brother, and then gets shot and killed going to the grocery store so that she can get groceries for their family.
Yeah.
It could be one of us.
And the armed security guard, who was licensed to have a gun, who was trained how to use it, lost his life.
Trying to save everybody.
Trying to save everybody else. So it's, on a positive note, I have to say this. Since our last broadcast, our podcast, Dana was contacted by a high school friend of ours who we knew for years, who's now a minister, and asked us to come to a nonviolent or stop the violence campaign and block party. So our third episode will be live from there.
Live from there, which is Elevate Church. Sergio has done an amazing job and is doing amazing mission work with where we grew up. He has a church, which I believe, if I'm correct, is over in the Florin Road area, and him and his wife are doing an incredible job with just bringing people to God and coaching and mentoring people and giving them a better way of life. Our biggest thing is, like Sergio said, is we have people hurting. I mean, children are hurting, our streets are hurting, our streets are bleeding, people are bleeding, their hearts hurt. Their hearts are in a lot of pain and trauma, and they don't know how to evolve around all of this. And so we're honored to be able to be a part of that. As this continues to grow, we know that we're probably going to be, you know, a lot more involved with other people that want to do the same thing. So it's about you linking up and building your teams. You know, I kind of had that happen to me this week with a dear friend of mine that's fighting for her life right now. You know, she picked her people, and her people are getting things in order and doing what needs to be done. Pick your people. Pick your people. And if you can't pick your people, I'm going to let you know right now, the universe and God picks your people. So when you think you're not getting ready to go walk through a new door, there's doors that are going to open. You know, TJ and I both were kind of like, wow, we just posted our podcast. Our buddy took a look at it. He's like, I love what you guys are doing. So there's a reason why there's certain people in your life, and there's a reason why one door opens, because when that door opens, don't be afraid to open it wide open and jump right through it. Because
kick it open.
Sometimes you're super uncomfortable going, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. I haven't, you know, done any podcast things. I haven't done this. I haven't done lives. I haven't been around a lot of people. I don't know. I want to get involved with all this again. Do it. There's a reason, because God opens other doors for you. Other people open up other doors for you. You know, and at the end of the day, we don't know where this is going to take us. But I know that we've gotten positive feedback.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We've gotten people from high school that I think are relinking with one another, realizing how important family is, how important it is that we've remained family through the years. And some of them I think are stepping up to the plate. And I think, I know Scotty Silva is also a part of Elevate Church. He does a basketball program for kids.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing him there. I think he'll probably be there, I'm assuming. But, people just stepping up to the plate, because there's some times where God moves and puts you in a certain direction that, I technically retired and wasn't going to do any of this stuff for I didn't think the rest of my life. I thought I was just done, but I'm not done.
Here we are.
You're not done with some of your life circumstances. And if you can't wake up any morning and say, if I died today, I'm satisfied with who I am and what I've done, you're not living right. Because you should be able to wake up knowing you've done a job well done. And I know for me, there had been a tugging at my heart, and him and I have been talking about that. We've been wanting to do a podcast for years. Had no clue what the heck are we going to talk about. We got plenty of life stories to share with you, I'll tell you that much.
Boy.
Plenty.
Plenty.
Scary, fun, traumatizing.
Hilarious, you name it, we got it.
You name it, we got it. But at the end of the day, we stepped out of fear and, stepped out of who really cares if they don't like our show. And at the end of the day, we're making new moves and we're making new friends, even reliving some of our childhood with some of the best people that we grew up with. And it's amazing to see some of the people we grew up with doing the right thing too, and doing their ministries, doing their art programs, doing their poetry programs, doing their music programs.
Right.
But people are doing this on their own time, their own, heart and their energy, spending it on giving back to people at the end of the day. And if we don't do that, we're going to lose more people's lives.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Even to suicide, and we don't want to see that happen either. These people that now have been part of these gun violence, they got to live through trauma now. So are we going to help them? We better help them at the end of the day. That's my biggest goal, and that's why I stay in contact with one of the trauma therapists that I know, and we are hopefully linking up to be able to have her available for her to be able to take on some of those calls or some of those things that people need to talk about, because PTSD is real. Trauma is real. Mental illness is real. If you need help, get the help you need. There's hotlines, there's people you can reach out to, and again, we will have whatever it is that you need if you reach out to us by email when we are live, or whatever it is, if we're at events. You can come up to us and pull us aside and say, I really need to talk about some serious stuff.
Real talk.
Real talk. And if we have to leave for a half hour, 45 minutes to go do whatever it is for this person,
we'll do it.
That's what we'll do it. We'll go separately somewhere and meet with this person and get them whatever it is that they need. That it's real talk. That's what we're here for. That's what this is all about at the end of the day.
So with that said, thank you again for tuning in. We appreciate it. This means more to us than you can ever imagine. And if people get something from this, learn or reach out and change your life or help a friend, we did our job.
And it's not about the masses. It's about if we change one individual life, just one.
One at a time.
So even for a person who thinks, what am I going to be able to do to change somebody's life? You'd be surprised.
Very.
And one of my hugest mentors, which I love him to death, and who knows if I can get him to come talk on one of our podcasts. I know it'll be hard now because he's famous, but Trent Shelton, I coached with him for a year. And the one thing he taught me, and I still have my signed picture from him, it's a piece of art from another dear friend of mine that we went to high school with. He said, Dana, it's not about the masses. It's one person at a time. He started out with, one or two people at his lives when he would do his mentorship in regards to, helping people out. We started with maybe one person at our poetry circuits, and then it turned into 100, and then it turned to every second Saturday, and and doing big shows with other great artists here in Sacramento. So never think that you're too small for something big at the end of the day, because sometimes It's not about how big you are. It's about how much your heart has been healed about giving back to another person, an individual,
Definitely.
and what is it that fulfills your life at the end of the day. And so that's why we're doing this, is that if you don't feel 100% fulfilled, well, why is that? Let's get to the point of why is that. And technically, most of the time, it's your own fear.
Amen.
And we want to take that away because it's not necessary anymore.
Don't be afraid to change.
No.
Change is good.
Change is good. It's scary.
It's scary.
It's very scary, but at the end of the day, change is awesome. And if you don't have a change person in your life, you gotta go get one.
You said it. I got her. She got me.
And if he doesn't change, he has to deal with me being in his ass about it.
Yes, definitely.
And I'm not very nice when I get to that point.
She's Italian, y'all. Come on. You know what Italians are? Light-skinned black people.
We don't mess around.
Hey, peace and love. Thank you again. And
God bless.
Embrace change. Until
Embrace
next time.
change. Until next time, we'll see you guys in episode 3. Take care.
Toodles.
Toodles!
Mad genius from the planet Black Venus. I paint with words with the mind of a mad scientist. I do it with heart, with my third eye eyeing this. When I tell stories, it's visual like a picture. I got a hustling game when it comes to this literature. My 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Dank, said I was a whiz kid. On open house, she showed my parents all the work that I did. My 7th grade teacher, Mrs. Mendez, said I was a mastermind. She told me to achieve higher and you will soar and climb. So what's so important about my brilliance are all the people throughout my life who instilled this. Welcome to your freshman year. This is where it all starts. We will turn all that sarcasm into smarts. That was the opening statement of my 9th grade English teacher. She knew exactly what to say to reach you. Never did she preach to you. She just knew how to speak to you. By no means wasted time on the false, but always expanded on the truths. Made you think twice about the do-nots and the do's. So Miss Tenen, I want to say thank you. There is so much more I want to say to you. Because of you, TLA is soaring. Love, determination, and respect you kept pouring. The man that I am today is because the woman you were. I look back on it now and admire. The only way to gain your respect is to inject acumen into your intellect. Now you can all see the importance of intelligence. Reliving the past is not irrelevant. Don't just stop to smell the roses for the smell of it. Teachers in your life are so pertinent and significant. When you stop to smell the roses, is the time to think back about all the mentors in your life that started you off on the right track. I loved my 12th grade teacher, Mrs. Bowden. When she first heard me speak, she said her heart was stolen. She said, young man, do something with that voice. Plenty of wrong will come your way, but always make the right choice. Influenced by Black, Indian, white, Asian, and Hispanic, I've experienced revolving love as the axis rotate this planet.
And action. So yeah, when you are doing a podcast with a short girl, this is what happens.